Gladys Knight and the Pips and Midnight Train to Georgia. Good morning, this is BBC Radio Gloucestershire on 14:13 a.m. and it's Chris Baxter here till 12 today, live from the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham, which opens its doors very soon to a new look. It's been refurbished, the sort of areas that you see when you come in from Regent Street, the box office, the cafe, the bars, and then when you come through to the auditorium, back to its Victorian splendour really, the Everyman. £3 million has been spent on it after the facelift, and they haven't really done any substantial work on the theatre for 30 years. You'll notice when you come into the auditorium there are new curtains, new carpets, the boxes, you can use those again, and more importantly there are lovely new seats as well. I'm sitting in one of those right now, a red velvet seat, right in front of the stage, and as you look around you, the plaster work, which was very ornate, has been restored and painted to what it would have looked like in the Victorian era. I think it was just a sort of one block colour before. New wallpaper, new carpets, it's looking marvellous. In a moment you'll hear some of the people who work behind the scenes, and Roger Hendry, who's the theatre services engineer. Now, gone are the days where they used to build scenery here. Roger's been working here for just over 40 years, and of course when it was a rep theatre they used to build all the scenery on site. Now his role is slightly different. Sometimes they're adjusting scenery that from somewhere else in the UK, but they do all kinds of maintenance work here as well, fix things. He does welding one minute, woodwork the next, all sorts of stuff. But with me now in the auditorium is Michael Hasted, who's had an involvement with the Everyman Theatre for an awful long time. And the last time I met you, Michael, was when you were putting together the final show that was on in the studio before it closed for refurbishment, and it was called Final Days. It was a sort of sketch review show, wasn't it?
It was, yes. It was the last show before it closed, and it was a great success. We suffered greatly by a series of events. There was the royal wedding on the Friday. The Monday before was a bank holiday. The Monday after was a bank holiday. So it was an uphill struggle filling the seats. But it was a good show. I was really pleased with it, and everybody in it was great. So,
and you first were involved in the Everyman at the age of 16.
That's right. When the rep first started, the first year of the rep, 1960, they sort of went off at half-cock, but in the end of 61, Ian Mullins took over the rep, and it really got started. He got a decent company and everything, and he was short of money, and he recruited some boys from the grammar school when it was in the High Street to come and help out backstage, and I was one of those, and there were 3 or 4 of us that did it, and it was literally a life-changing experience. We came in for the Christmas show in 61, which was Salad Days, and we came in on for the dress rehearsal, and it was literally life-changing. I mean, I stopped doing any school work. I was consequently kicked out of school, and I then went on to work in the theatre. Another guy who was in the review, Robert Whelan, was the same, and he was the same, and another guy called David Gilmore, who's coming down on Sunday, is now an important director. There were, half a dozen of us or so, and it was really, really life-changing to walk. I mean, in those days, there were no stage doorkeepers. You could literally walk in off the street, and to walk off the dull little back alley there onto this sort of stage of magic, and it was like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and it was a new world. Yeah, walking into literally another world, and fascinating to hear what Roger's got to say in a few minutes' time about what the theatre was like 40 years ago, literally just bare floorboards and wooden seats and gas lamps as well. Yeah, the auditorium, the front of house, wasn't too bad, but the backstage was really primitive. I think there was just one loo in the entire backstage. There was no shower. I think there were 2 dressing rooms and 1 very small dressing room. There was no green room, a room for the actors to sit in and relax. In the corner there was a thing like it was like a garage really, with some old sofas they'd taken out of a skip or something, and that was it. But it had been like that for 100 years or nearly, and it had all this pattern in it, had all these dark, dusty corners, and it was, I think, more interesting than it is now. But
so the theatre officially opens at the weekend. We've got Ken Dodd on Friday with a sort of pre-opening show. One of the things you've been busy doing is writing a book about the history of the Everyman Theatre. So tell us about that, and it'll be available soon, won't it?
The publication date is the 30th of September, and it's called A Theatre for All Seasons, and it came about because when the restoration started earlier in the year, or when it was coming up to the restoration starting, Geoffrey wanted to present the information about the theatre slightly differently. We're doing display boards front of house so the public can get an outline of the history. And he wanted to do a proper website with all the information about the theatre. And I said, well, if we're going to do all this research and we're going to spend all this time, why don't we do a book? And Geoffrey said, oh, well, nobody's going to want to buy a book, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a book with you, whether you want it or not. And that was exactly a year ago I started, and it's been on a lot of research, and I've based it very much on people's reminiscences. There was an advert in the Echo for people to come forward if they had any stories to tell, and we got lots and lots of people coming in. Guys who'd worked backstage in the 40s and 50s. There were 2 or 3 people who'd been brought to the theatre every Saturday night in the 30s. And the best story was a little old lady who contacted me. And she'd actually appeared on the stage in 1923 as a 4-year-old fairy in the Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, wow.
Some touring show came to town, Midsummer Night's Dream, and they wanted fairies, so they went to local dance schools. And this little girl was recruited and brought along, and she was issued with a purple dress out of one of these great big old-fashioned theatrical hampers, and it was too big for her. So they sort of tied it up with string and sort of pushed her on stage. She was really upset because she was appearing on stage all tied up with these bits of string, and it really upset her. Anyway, so lots of stories like that. It's all based... I didn't want to do just, a list of boring facts and dates and all that. So it's very much based on reminiscences of the members of the public. A lot of actors have spoken to me. Stephen Burkhoff's done the foreword. Josephine Chewson was a big help, and she's coming down on the 2nd.
So that'll be available soon, and the price?
£25 in all good bookshops.
And as you say, it's people's memories, it's the people's theatre, really. So that's important. And what do you think, Michael? I mean, let's just stand up out of these seats, the new seats, and look back at where the public will be sitting watching the shows. I mean, are you impressed with the work that's been done? And it's all been done by a local firm as well.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's surprising that the work can be done. You think all these craftsmen are dead, but they are still around. And this theatre was built from scratch, from the ground up, in 6 months, which is amazing. And all the plasterwork, all the ornate plasterwork, most of it was built off-site. And they just came in and screwed it on. And although it looks fantastic and very substantial, it's just plaster. You could probably punch a hole through it with your fist. I think the seats are great. They're very comfortable. There's much more legroom than there was before. The ceiling is magnificent. I think Kendall's going to have a hard time on Friday. I think everybody's going to be looking up at the ceiling.
Yeah, it's been painted with some beautiful sort of friezes of, it looks like house martins on the top.
All the paintings around the central dome. You've got these small oval paintings. Those are all done on canvas and stuck on.
The cherubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you get an idea of the scale of this building as well, the height.
Yeah, you do, but you get a much better idea of it if you actually stand at the back in the gods. The theatre looks enormous from there. No, I think it's great. I think what I like particularly, the pillars, they put in these new pillars to support the boxes, because originally all the dress circle was supported by iron pillars and they got in people's way, so they took them out in the 30s, and consequently they couldn't use the boxes. And they've put in pillars now to support the boxes, so they'll be in use again, and those are really fantastic. And I also like the proscenium arch, which was discovered during restoration. It was marble underneath layers and layers of pink paint. So I think the things I like best, I like those arches, and I like the marble proscenium arch.
It does look a little bit like a ship almost, an old ship with some of the pieces on the pillars. It's just stunning. The work, the craftsmanship is lovely.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because one of the companies that did a lot of the maintenance and restoration work in the early days was a company called H.H. Martin & Co., which is incredibly important company based in Cheltenham, which nobody knows about. And they actually did the interior fittings on the Titanic.
Really?
So, yes, they did. And, yeah, it's a splendour which you don't get now. And it's better now than it was 6 months ago in here.
It took me a while to get used to the carpet. It's a sort of swirly carpet, but it does fit in with the original kind of style. But I wasn't keen on it to begin with, but I can see why they've done it.
It was... I'm not mad about it, but it's been improved by the fact that the seats are covering it up. But,
it's a sort of swirly pattern.
It's a very swirly pattern, and it's very much in your face, or at least in your feet more. But it is a bit, but I wouldn't have had it myself.
But it's got to fit in with that sort of original look and that Victorian look.
Yeah, I mean, the colours are right. It's sort of rich and everything else, so I suppose it's okay, I'll get used to it. Bit of Scretash on it.
Michael, lovely to see you, and good luck with the book as well.
Okay, thanks a lot.
That's Michael Hasted, who's been involved with the theatre for a long time. And also, you'll be able to see pictures of the whole place on Points West tonight on BBC One at 6:30, so do tune in. Steve Nibbs is doing a special report this lunchtime and this evening as well, if you want to see some pictures. It's BBC Radio Gloucestershire, and it's 18 minutes past 10.
BBC Radio Gloucestershire.
From Monday to Sunday, we're here for you, covering everything.